We can't fix the climate until we fix democracy. David Orr has 4 steps we need to take. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. You've heard the promos on this program for the Bioneers Conference. Usually it's a physical conference that you go to. I'm one of the keynote speakers this year. They're doing it online, Bioneers.org. And one of the speakers is our next guest. He is the State of American Democracy Project, the founder of the State of American Democracy Project, the co-editor of Democracy Unchained, a professor of environmental studies and politics at Oberlin College, the author of numerous books, including his most recent, Dangerous Years, Climate Change and the Long Emergency. And his website, stateofamericandemocracy.org. You can tweet him at David Orr, O-R-R, 2001. And David, welcome back to the program. I'm wondering your thoughts on James Hansen's famous saying, "We can't fix the climate till we fix our democracy."
Well, Tom, thanks. Nice to be back with you. I think that's right, and I think what Hansen was developing is an idea that we elect people, and those people create governments, and the governments are either able to deal with long-term problems or not. And in the case of climate change, we've not developed a government that was, or elected people who created governments that were able to handle or willing to handle the climate change. And so this emergency has grown from a small cloud 20, 30, 40 years ago to a major storm now. So I think Hansen capsulizes the situation exactly right.
So back in the 1950s, a real estate lobbying group called the FEE, and I'm sorry I don't recall what that acronym is, but it's FEE, started a political kind of a pseudo-political front group. It was originally, they didn't even take it all that seriously, to give a kind of pseudo-political patina to their idea that the real estate industry should not be regulated, that they were sick and tired of all this oversight by federal and state authorities, and this political entity that they created is known as the Libertarian Party now, and it's held to that. But now the Republican Party has been consumed by this weird ideology that somehow government is a bad thing in almost all circumstances, outside of police and military. And it seems to me that what got us here, the reason why government doesn't function anymore, starts with Ronald Reagan on January 20th, 1980, saying government is not the solution to your problems, government is the cause of your problems. And just echoing that libertarian ideology that David and Charles Koch and others were promoting so aggressively. Do you think that plays as big a role as I suspect it does?
Oh, I think you're exactly correct. It's a long strain in American history. It goes all the way back to the Anti-Federalists and through Thomas Jefferson, and Henry David Thoreau is famous for lots of things. One of them, which is saying that the government that governs least governs best. And right. It comes all the way through, and you're exactly right. Reagan capsulized it for the modern era 40 years ago. And it works to the advantage of people for whom a small government is very advantageous. The Koch brothers really don't want a lot of regulation, but other people who are involved in pollution or exploitative behavior or extractive economies don't want it either. It costs them a lot of money to be responsible. And responsibility requires some kind of regulation and oversight and keeping data and keeping the records on things. So that has become one of the mantra of the Republican Party.
Right. As the founder of the State of the American Democracy Project, what is the state of American democracy right now?
Well, the acronym, I think, says it well, SAD, SAD, but it's not quite that simple. In looking back at the election results of 2020, in some ways, the dam held. It contained the fascist impulses that were unleashed by Donald Trump and deregulators and the Koch brothers and hate radio and Fox News and so forth. It held. And the public said, not quite resoundingly enough, but it said clearly that we don't like this. But looking ahead, and if you use COVID as sort of a benchmark, the problems we see with COVID, an irresponsible government that didn't act in time, was very ineffective and antagonistic to doing the basic things to protect American health, like wear masks and so forth. That is going to be small potatoes as we move into further into the era of rapid climate change. And so you think California fires and twin hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast and the things that we know are coming at us. It's not a matter of whether, it's just when. That will test democracy in ways that the current pandemic has not or could not. I mean, if we're bothered by this roughly year and a half long problem with COVID, and it's a serious problem, much suffering and so forth. I don't mean to belittle it. But climate change will dwarf that. And climate change effectively at some point is permanent. Unless we take an off-ramp very quickly, this is going to be a permanent crisis. You've written about that very eloquently and a long time ago, so you were one of the early people warning about this. But I think the effect on democracy is we either repair it, as a quote from Jim Hansen refers to, we either repair democracy and make better decisions, or we're in for a very rapid decline of democracy in the middle of all these biospheric constraints, and there are others waiting in the wings, inequity being one of the major ones, and nuclear weapons has not gone away. So,
David Orr, what are the steps that you would advise Americans to be taking, or American legislators?
That's a great question. Number one, if you're an educator or involved in education, we need to educate a generation of young people who understand civics. Number two, you can't have this much venom of misinformation and malicious misinformation dripped into the bloodstream of the body politic. We've got to control in some fashion without necessarily infringing on the First Amendment, but we have to control that kind of venom that's crept into American politics. Third, we've got to reform our institutions. The Electoral College is really about as anti-democratic as you could get. That needs to be reformed. And fourth, take money out of politics. I don't think there are any mysteries about any of this. These have been ideas that have circulated for years. But those are four steps that immediately come to mind.
Yeah. Are you seeing action? Are you encouraged by what we've seen so far? With the Biden administration, or the budding Biden administration, and the direction that the leadership in the House and Senate are going on the Democratic side?
Well, Tom, I think it's a mixed picture. I am very hopeful when I look at the amount of enthusiasm across the country, from the Sunrise Movement to young people coming into politics and AOC. I mean, there's a whole new generation coming into American political life. I'm enthusiastic about that. What worries me is that 73 million vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is easily the worst president we've ever had, bar none. He set a new standard for the presidency at the low level. But I'm worried about the 73 million Americans that saw it otherwise. And I think one of the challenges to Biden is going to be to bring the country together, as he puts it, to heal the country, to find the soul of the nation that enough people can agree to. And that worries me, because you have to come into the red zone, and here in states like Ohio, where I live, you have to begin to recreate towns. You have to begin to create investment, and whether it's wind farms or infrastructure, these people need jobs. And we disinvested in a lot of places in the Rust Belt that turned out to be later Trump voters. And they had every reason to be angry about the way the system had performed or had not performed in those years. So that's one of the challenges ahead for Biden. His team, I think, has a lot of very talented, very smart people on it, as far as I've seen it. But I think the work to be done is extensive. It isn't a matter of passing a bill or two. It's going to be rebuilding the American economy in a way that works for everybody.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. David Orr, founder of the State of American Democracy Project, co-editor of Democracy Unchained. His latest book is Dangerous Years, Climate Change and the Law and Emergency, stateofamericandemocracy.org. His website, you can tweet him at DavidOrr2001.